How you been?
Oh, pretty decent. Busy as usual.
It's been a long time.
It has. I think
Oh my God, what you were my
fourth.
my fourth podcast. Now you're going to be like my 130 some odd.
Nice.
I mean, honestly, to think about it, if you hadn't have said yes, I mean, possibly it would never have gotten to this point. I mean, it was so important to have somebody willing to be number 4, and that just happened to be you, and that's really cool.
Al, I'm
You
all
sound good though. You sound up.
Life has been
like
good
you're
for the last couple years, for the last year or so.
Oh yeah. What's happening with the publishing house?
Well, I wrote a whole bunch of tools for. I rewrote my tools for publishing books, and the results have been really nice. So, yeah, I like automating things.
I saw a few of her tweets. Not that I completely understand what's happening with the automation stuff, but you're a coder by trade, though, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
I started coding when I was 6.
6 years old. That's incredibly long time ago. And you wanted to come on today and talk about side character fan fiction.
Well, side character and fan fictions.
And fan fiction? Well, I thought there was side character fan fiction, like you're writing about Robin or writing about.
Started with that, and then that kind of drove my whole belief of how to organize my own novels.
So tell me some fan fiction that includes side characters that you really thought was. I mean, what's the genre like? I mean, what's out there?
Well, so when I started, I did a lot of commissions that were one-off of basically people saying, I want to be in this story. Harry Potter was a big one for a while, mostly with books 2 and 3. So they're like
Harry Potter took off though, didn't it, with side character fiction? The whole movies they're doing now with the what's his name, the pet guy. I mean, that's a side character.
Yep,
that's so cool.
And
that could basically be somebody's fan fiction on Wattpad.
Yep. And then the other one I ended up doing is there was a couple commissioners who really liked background characters of anime scenes. It's like Writing Bean. They wanted to know what one of the characters in the mall, how they got there. Or just the random mook in the background. And they're like, I like this character because I identify with them. How did they get there? How did they, what brought them there? In one case, so they could be horribly killed, but because it's anime. But other cases,
I mean, this is what you're writing, right? Where did you get the idea from? Where did people come up with the idea of this side character fan fiction? I mean, you didn't invent it, right? I mean, this wasn't something that you came up with.
No, this was all. I started with commissions, which was people saying, I like what you write, and will you write something for me? And as I did that for about 10 years, I'm actually stopping this year is the point I decided I'm done doing commissioned work. But a lot of the commissions, that's what people were asking for was, I want to be this character. Or I want to know this character I like. So instead
Where do you think that comes from? Why are they looking to be a part of that fandom?
Sometimes it's just
like Comic-Con too, right? Not Comic-Con, but what's it called? Like cosplaying. It's kind of similar in a way. They want to live that book, that story, that idea.
Right. And sometimes I think I can tell most of them are that character look like what their ideal form would be, what they want to be.
But never the hero, right? I mean, they don't want to rewrite themselves as the hero. Please rewrite Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, but no Harry Potter. I want to be Harry Potter.
I have
right. I mean, you're not just changing names.
Yeah, I have not gotten a lot of those. So a lot of them are just, here's a side character, make them real. And just
who was the most popular side character of Harry Potter?
Ron.
Ron Weasley? He's like one of the main characters, though.
Oh, well, in his brothers and his sister. Well, in books 2 and 3, he wasn't quite as significant. So the commissions I did were, and then it was like random Gryffindors or random Hufflepuffs. and Slytherins. A lot of
Right.
Slytherins.
You would pick Ron's. Yeah, Slytherin. Slytherins are cool. I'm a Slytherin on some tests. On one email, I'm a Slytherin, and on the other one, I'm a Gryffindor. I hacked it, so I'm a Gryffindor, but like legitimately, I'm like all about the Benjamins, so I have to be a Slytherin, I guess. Seems like that's the only difference between the two tests is money.
For me,
When
it's
you're sacrificing
Hufflepuff.
and when you're not. You're a
Highly,
Hufflepuff?
highly tolerant and willing to take anyone, even if they don't agree with you.
Oh man, I am the opposite. I will jump down a person's throat. I am to the detriment of my own self sometimes. It's horrible.
Oh, I believe in playing well together.
Yeah.
And
Is that the Hufflepuff's job?
similar. Well, one of them is a lot of the, when you read about Hufflepuff, she accepted everyone, even if they weren't, the iconic Hufflepuff. The Hufflepuff's
God,
kind
if
pretty much.
Voldemort had been able to trick the Sorting Hat like Harry Potter did and ended up in Hufflepuff, there'd probably be nothing to stop him.
Possibly, but there's always a limit in the tolerance.
Maybe. But I mean, he went to the bad guys, right? He went to Slytherin. It's like,
Yeah.
I like the snakes and I like ripping people off, and you have every reason to expect me to kill your family and take all your belongings. But if you'd been a Hufflepuff, just been like a little friar type guy planting plants, and all the while he's planning his little domination thing, it probably would have worked out better.
Well, I do like psycho plant people. I love poison ivy.
I mean, I love this idea. The reason I love poison ivy, it's another good example, right? I mean, they did this with Harley Quinn, which is another like a newer character, right? Just in the movies. But that's a side character that's become more forefront, isn't it? It's a side character that's becoming like paramount to movies.
Right, because she was originally a side character in the animated series.
In the animated series, exactly. I just read that recently.
People got Harley Quinn is also one of my favorite characters. I have 3 iconic.
Badass, right? Great story.
Well,
I've read the first books of the New 52. I think it's the New 52.
Actually,
I like it. She's sexy, right? She's real sexy.
Well,
I think that's the way they're drawing her.
But she's also very kind and generous.
She's a psychiatrist, right?
She was a former psychiatrist. I don't like Harlequin with Joker because that abusive relationship's too close to my life. But when Harlequin gets away from Joker and goes with Poison Ivy or goes off on her own, those are the two I really like. There's actually one comic where she's fighting a hero and she finds out the heroine is pregnant, so she stops fighting and gets her to the hospital and then comes, visits, and brings presents.
What is wrong with her mentally? There's nothing wrong with her? She just has like that thing where she dotes on the Joker or whatever.
Yeah, she really fell for Joker and then he abused her and basically he took advantage of her, and that's why I like.
She'll go back to him every time though, right? Isn't that he's her greatest weakness or something? He's her kryptonite.
I don't know. I think they just said that she officially got married to Poison Ivy.
Really? That's cool. That's pretty cool. That's
well.
So I mean, this whole book is like side character fiction, with even Poison Ivy taking a front and center role in the action.
Yep. Well, it's characters. Yep. DC Heroes confirms they got married. That was this month.
What did you didn't read it, so you don't know Joker's reaction or if he's even in the book? I mean, I guess you have to have a Joker reaction in that book. That's interesting.
I really don't like Joker.
You don't like Joker at all?
Much as I love Harley, I hate Joker.
Huh.
Like I said,
Jack Nicholson's Joker portrayal in the '89 Batman is probably one of the greatest villains in any movie. It was so good. And then Heath Ledger doing it. Mark Hamill. I mean, God, it is an iconic character, right? People who do it really well. Was it Cesar Romero? Is that who did it in '66 or whatever that television series was?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen that one.
No, you didn't see the old television series?
Nah, for me, it was pretty much Mark Hamill was the only Joker for me.
Oh, Red Sonja. Would that be another side character that comes to the forefront? Or can you even count that movie because they kind of ripped off Conan trying to have an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie made?
Yeah. I don't know. A lot of them is they get spun off. Agent Carter, the TV
Agent
series.
Carter, great example too. I mean, a lot of
Mhm.
comic book come up, huh?
Oh yeah.
You see this at play in comic books where they take a side character and go, "You are now, you're Dirk, whatever his name is. That guy was Robin.
Dick Grayson.
Yeah, that's his name, Dick Grayson.
Well,
You're
he
Dick
became
Grayson,
Nightwing.
and now you're Nightwing. Does that
Yeah.
count, or is Nightwing now a central character and no longer a side character,
Well,
or
Robin
will
was
he
this.
forever be a side character? Exactly.
Well, Robin started as a side character, but they really, basically people identified with him and liked Robin that, and then they wanted him to evolve. So you have Robin, you have Nightwing and Red Hood, and all the others. There's quite a few of the Robins, and it's nice to see them go off on their own and evolve as characters and their own personalities.
Right. DC's good for that. Marvel resets too often, don't they? Well,
Yeah.
you'll have like the Vulture come back every 25 or 30 issues, and it's like, dude, weren't you just in prison? How is it so easy for you to break out of prison all the time?
Well, DC's not too much better. I mean, Batman
Oh,
and
really?
Joker have been around for 50 years, and Batman still hasn't successfully gotten rid of them.
Well,
They're
he's
still,
killed him once. Well,
yeah.
actually, we're not sure, right? In the Killing Joke, we're not sure if he killed him at the end, but the idea is that he did.
Yeah. I mean, they're reboots. I like single continuities without reboots, which is what I try to do in my writing.
Yeah, yeah,
But
right. I mean, you kind of do want that, but comic books don't get away from that. So, I mean, comic books, yeah, you do the side character thing. You could pull side
mhm.
characters very easily. It's a visual medium. They have arcs and whatnot. And I guess movies are also an example where you can kind of do it with the Harry Potter world. Are there other examples that you could think of?
Oh,
Maybe the
sure.
Sarah Connor Chronicles. That's a side
Um,
character that came to the forefront, huh?
the Mummy,
The
the
Mummy with
with
the
Brendan
Scorpion
Fraser.
King.
Yeah, Scorpion King. But he was effectively a side character in
Well,
the villain.
let's yeah, exactly. And he turned out to be that was like that's one of my favorite Dwight Johnson, Dwayne Johnson movies.
Uh,
The Scorpion.
I like Jumanji.
Yeah. Well, I mean, back in the day, that was like very close to Conan, right? I mean,
Hmm.
yeah, they had
Yeah.
that nice sword and swashbuckler feel to it, and
Yep.
it didn't feel connected to the Mummy, but I guess it was. I mean, they
Well,
claim
they had the same problem that Star Wars episodes 1 through 3 had, which is we're going to make him the good guy, and at some point we have to turn him into the bad guy.
exactly. Yeah, let's
And
show the bad guy as a little kid so you don't want him to be a bad guy. It's like, I know I'm not supposed to cheer for this guy, but why am I cheering for him anyway? He's going to be a bad dude.
well, because they
Yeah,
made
it's
him a
totally.
hero. See, I think that if you're going to do it, um, they should be a bad guy from the beginning. But I like stories that don't have to do with only heroes. So I want to know how the bad guy got there. So
Yeah, right.
some of the stories on my master plan actually are about the bad guy's evolution into how they got there.
So that's interesting stuff. I do like that. The culmination of an evil personality. It's fascinating.
Well, my current novel, Flight of the Scions, Sin Mac's one of the bad guys, and he's the mercenary trying to kidnap her. He basically has, when he gets on his ship, he's like, "Hey, Bob, you're having a kid. Take the week off, and then go kill another." And then he kills another guy. But it's why he does it, and is important because I think it gives more gravis to the ending when the guy's like, "Hey, I'm where I am." And if you eventually find out there's a lot of things that led up to it and they weren't necessarily tragic, it's a lot more interesting of a story.
Yeah. You don't feel bad for him, right? You're like, dude, you're making the wrong decision. Oh, now you're making another wrong decision. Oh, that one's leading to another wrong decision. All
Yeah.
of these are wrong-headed decisions, and you're not a good person. You're just selfish and horrible.
Yeah. Or
I mean, prison is filled with people like that, right? Who know they're making bad decisions, and yet they still do. But yeah, they had a bad life growing up. Yeah, their mom was mean to them. Yeah, their dad beat them. Yeah, they starved for a few weeks or whatever.
not
None
always.
of it excuses the thing they did, the murder of whatever number of people or whatever it's going to be.
But the Descent is wonderful.
Yeah,
But
the
it's
Descent
not
is wonderful, right? Because that's all about it's about hubris and it's about vice, isn't it? It's about doing things that feel good. It's not about making those hard decisions.
not always.
Ever,
Order
right?
the
I mean, the bad
uh,
except Thanos, right? Thanos is the only bad guy that ever did it for moral reasons.
I don't know about that. So Order the Stick. It's a web comic.
Okay.
There's Mizaki the Paladin. She was trying to bring order and be good. She just kept going more extreme in the process. She still thought she was the hero, right up to the point where she actually doomed the entire city and opened up one of the great gates. But up to that point, she honestly thought she was doing good.
I can
She
see that. I
didn't
mean,
think
paladins are very cut and dry, aren't they? I mean, they
yeah.
can't be gray. They can't decide, oh, this is bad. This is my God's word, and my God is I'll follow them regardless, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, most people who play paladins have a tendency to play them lawful stupid.
Well, it's more fun that way. I mean, it's hard to be completely on your God's, schlong the entire comic campaign because your God's not going to like every. I mean, you're playing with like 6 or 7 people with different gods. It's almost
Yep.
impossible to balance that properly, I imagine.
Yeah, I played a paladin that drank heavily, so I can't really talk.
Right? Did your guys succumb to evilness at one point, or was the
Nope.
drinking just character?
Everything had its moral basis, and you did the right thing. Just play hard away, work hard, play hard.
I played a cleric like that, and I drank all the time, but it was also very racist against all other races besides dwarves. Nobody
Yeah,
else liked playing with me.
yeah, I can't do that. I have to play well with everyone, though, except for the plant mage. The plant mage, basically, I was playing an elf version of Poison Ivy. So whenever he was in charge of the prisoners, he decided they were fertilizer, and so they learned not to ever leave him alone with prisoners.
So
Lawful.
when you're writing, are you constantly looking for characters to break off their main storyline to kind of create their own narratives with, or is it just
Um.
a byproduct of the writing process for you?
So that is a weird one. Quite a few years ago, I wrote this 600,000 word serial for a website. It was a kind of a commission slash donation. And as I was writing, I realized I'm identifying hooks that if I ever wanted to use them, they were there. So as I wrote this over almost 2 years, I actually got it to the point I tied the final chapters to the first chapter as if I planned it because I had those hooks. And so,
Yeah, in terms of the part of the story that grabs you, right? The part of the story that makes you want to continue reading on, the hook, the reason for the whole narrative.
well, no, more like, well, this is how it would tie, here's a place where something significant may happen that would tie it together. So let's use the example of my second book, Sand and Ash.
Okay.
At one point, Rudimo gets kicked out of his clan, and he's basically running around the city. I talk about another speedster in the world, and then move on. The fact I have that detail in there, because I actually know that character now. Because once I established the hook, I thought about it and said, okay, where does this character come from? And so I kind of backtrack and forward track, and that character shows up in the next book too, as a just, oh, by the way, this bird speedster showed up, said something. And then I have this hook and this plot that I can follow between those two characters. The side character of one thing happens to have this place where I can insert another story if I wanted to expand on it and see if something interesting happens. And I end up doing that a lot now. And it's just kind of like I write characters and it's like, well, I'm not explaining it, therefore it can be its own story, and I just write them down.
Do you aim for a specific type of plot with these characters too in mind, or are you just writing the arc of their lives outside of the original arc that you found them in?
I kind of tried to. So with Ryujimo's story, I had an idea of where it started and it ended, and so I just wrote that story. And the side characters are just kind of like the commissions from before. How did this character they had 10 seconds of screen time? How did they get there? So when I'm bored, I think about all the side characters and how they would tie together. It wasn't until this year I figured out I am writing a master plot between all my novels, which is a world war. I'm just doing a World War one POV at a time. So I'm doing it instead of interspersing chapters, I'm actually writing full novels, novellas, and stories that show a world war.
What's your hope with it after it's done? You're going to publish it on in your house and
I
hope.
I mean, I post a chapter every week for free on my website. I have a buffer until 2019. I'll have more stories then, but I'm just going to keep writing as long as people give me money and someone seems interested.
I mean, at the end of the day, that's all you have, isn't it? Just fill that void of what wasn't with something that is. And, at the same time, what we're thinking about with this idea of side character fan fiction, I mean, fan fiction, you could take the fan away from it because they kind of do it in the real world as well. When you mentioned Star Wars, man, boom, all these freaking fireworks started going up. I mean, they've written short story collections. The newest one, From a Certain Point of View, is just nothing but side characters telling their perspective of the main story. How freaking awesome is that? Right? I mean, I love that so much.
To
Obi-Wan Kenobi is a side character that is the hero of the first 3 films now.
Mhm.
You gotta love that.
In 2 TV shows actually kind of hammered that home. There was a Babylon 5 episode that was done almost entirely from the point of view of 2 maintenance workers.
Love it. And they call that a bottle episode, don't they? Where it's kind of self-sufficient and doesn't really further the plot and just kind of furthers
But
the world development and stuff like
it
that.
did because in the background you see Sheridan and everyone running around trying to deal with crises. And it's
Yeah.
just them cleaning
Yeah.
up. And there's a Buffy episode,
That's
which is
love it.
entirely from Xander's point of view. And Buffy and the others are fighting a demon and they're getting thrown across the room and he's doing one thing. And you just have all these characters having these massive battles in the background, and going through their own plots, but you're just focusing on this one character who's not directly tied to it. And I love those stories.
Love them, yeah. And Battlestar Galactica, the engineer and somebody's locked in the airlock. Remember, the whole episode is them trying to get out or something. Star Trek does this all the time too.
Mhm.
They'll take the
Yeah.
red shirt and put him in with the captain, and the red shirt's going to die, but you're not quite sure how or whatever. But I mean, that side character has a story, an arc right there that ends in 50 minutes, but still, it's
Mhm.
an arc nonetheless.
And it's interesting because
It's
I
interesting.
love I love talking to people and meeting people and seeing everyone's different lives and how they interact. And so a lot of the side characters things, the commissions of expanding someone is to reflect that so many people have different lives that just kind of mesh together. And it's fascinating to see how they're different and
Yeah.
how they see
How
something.
they're the same too, right? I mean,
Yep.
within the narrative, the bad guy versus the good guy. I mean, it's nice to see the Wicked Witch kind of written about in a prose form for 500 pages or something. I mean, this is the bad guy. That's supposed to like
Oh,
them, but now at the end of the day,
there is a short story from Amazing Science. It started off with I am now known to be Glinda the Good Witch of the North. Anyone who fails to call me this will be flogged. And I remember that first paragraph. And the entire story is memos of Glinda going through her rebranding of being the Good Witch while
that's awesome.
Dorothy's running around. And that story is another one that just hung with me. It's things from a different point of view have a much different story. The end
Stuff like
result
that's
is
getting published now too. That's like a legit story that you would find in I don't know, Clark's World or something. People want to read that stuff, so it's not even fan fiction anymore. It's like full on speculative
well,
professional work that you can profit from.
Orson Scott Card, Ender Shadow. which was about the guy next to Ender during Ender's
I read
Game.
the first one and I got really disappointed in the second one and couldn't read farther.
Yeah, they kind of changed. Plus,
there's a whole world, isn't there? And I kind of can't do it.
well,
But he does it in that book. He pulls a side character and writes specifically about him.
Yeah, it's actually the events of Ender's Game from a different point of view.
Oh, that's fascinating. Which one is it? What book is it again? So I can write this down.
I think it's Ender's Shadow.
Ender's Shadow? Interesting.
Ender's Shadow is a 1999 book. Yep. It's the same place as Ender's Game. And it's about... Yeah, it's Ender's Game from a side character. Bean, who is his best friend.
Interesting.
At the school.
Does he survive to the end of the story so that you get to see Ender kind of doing his thing? I don't remember if he survives the story. Okay. Yeah, that's really fascinating. So I remember the story being that he thinks that he is still being trained, right? That he's not at war, but the entire time in the last part of the book, he's actually at war fighting the creatures or whatever.
Right. It's that glorious mind screw.
I love it. Yeah, it's really good. That's why that book is good. The twist. That's what got M. Night Shyamalan. Oh my God, what another great example. The twists that he does in his movies. He writes about side characters now. Mr. Glass is coming out with a movie. Right? I mean, from the guy from Unbreakable was his hero. Yes. Mr. Glass was the bad guy. Now we're getting a Mr. Glass movie with him as the central character, which I think fits, right? I mean, it fits the motif that we're talking about.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I don't like Mr. Glass for other reasons, but that's okay. I have a friend.
I bet you've broken a bone before, right? The idea of being fragile.
I have a friend who actually has that disease, the osteosis imperfecta. And of course,
they feel. I mean, does it hurt when they break something, or is it so like, oh, I just broke my leg? Oh, really? Oh, God.
Oh, it hurts. It's in his case. There's a couple types, but they're rarely as pretty as Samuel Jackson. Just because in his case he was 3'6" and he had broken all but 2 bones in his body.
3'6". Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he's in a wheelchair for his life. He had steel rods in his spine. I mean, that's my only complaint is, it's kind of like hackers in movies drive me nuts as a programmer.
Well, yeah, I mean, they don't get it right. I mean, how could they? Most programming is just done on Google nowadays, anyway, isn't it?
No, depends where it is, but
I'm just messing with you. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying. I mean, what kind of story would you write about your friend's life? I mean, if you had to create a narrative where he's the hero, what would it be? Obviously, not a guy plotting world domination. I mean, what would your story be like?
No, since he happened to be a programmer, I'd probably end up going with the magic user, somebody, because mage or telepathy. So in my world, telepathy is based on TCP/IP networks.
TCP/IP. Oh, okay, gotcha. Like a network add language or whatever. Like, how do you say it?
No, just actually how websites work is how my telepathy works in my world.
So real magic then.
Well, it's a framework. So you can open connections, you can have APIs. It's
interesting though if you think about it, because you could have like gateways to new realities and you're using it, right? I mean, if you have like you open it up into a physicality. I like that, where the code stops being just math on a screen, but you can actually make it do things physically, like Star Wars or Star Trek with the replicators creating things out of nothing.
Or Neuromancer, Shadowrun.
Yeah, what's that guy's name who wrote Neuromancer?
Gibson?
Yeah. Something like that.
Snow Crash.
First name.
Snow Crash is one of my favorite sci-fi novels.
I just know it from films, right? What films would I know that from? Hackers? Was that kind of like that? It wasn't magic though, was it? It was just straight hacker stuff.
Actually, the one with the dolphin, I'm trying to remember. Johnny Mnemonic.
Oh, I didn't watch that all the way through. That's with Keanu Reeves too, isn't it?
It's because they enter cyberspace. Anything where you enter cyberspace. Oh yeah. They have a code-breaking dolphin in that one.
That's pretty cool. Tad Williams wrote a story about people kind of inhabiting computer. You know who I'm talking about? Is it Tad Williams?
Yeah.
Kind of wrote about like these gamers that were all powerful in their world, but they were forced to go into it. I think they even left their physical bodies, or they brought their physical bodies into the machine, or it was a really interesting book. It's a trilogy. I only read the first one of it though.
Well, for
um,
fantasy, you have Webmage, which is a wonder. I love the Webmage series, which is Greek mythology, fates, and everything. But it's not. It's about a relative of one of the fates, not Perseus or what others, who's a hacker who can go into basically the reality of programs which are reality. Similar to the second half of the Amber series,
huh.
which also went that direction.
Didn't
But
read that either. I don't
oh,
think I've ever read any of this neuromancer stuff. It's intriguing. I mean, it really is fascinating. But it was fascinating 10 years ago, right? When the
no,
internet was kind of first opened up, and this idea of physically inhabiting it was there. I remember fantasizing about EverQuest and kind of wanting to live inside of it.
yeah.
But what does that do as far as now? I mean, what do you do with that same type of genre today? Do you still write about living in the internet, or has that become something new?
Yeah, well, when you look at kids staring at their phone and people on trains staring at their phone, it's not much different. It's just
They're not
closer to
playing
reality.
they're not really playing those immersive games anymore, though, are they? WoW's gone, EverQuest is gone. They're playing like their little color games, whatever they are, Bubble Land or
Uh,
what have you, or
for,
they're on Reddit or Twitter or something. They're not playing games like they were before on the
I
internet.
don't know. You still got things like Fortnite and the Oculus Rift, the VR from Steam, is game immersive games too.
I've not
I
heard
mean,
anything good about Oculus Rift for your phone or for VR. VR has not taken off like I thought it was going to. I'm a little bit disappointed.
I
Thought it was
can't
gonna be
use
huge.
I can't use it, so it doesn't really interest me.
How come?
I have bad eyes, plus I don't see 3D graphics.
You've got bad eyes too. I have to wear glasses. I would imagine that would be a total pain in the ass with a mask.
Well, I had eye surgery in 2000 I went from 21,000 to 2025 overnight. However, because
20. Wow.
I couldn't focus anymore. They actually couldn't find my
Huh.
focal point before surgery. But the problem was after surgery, my eyes are permanently hazy because the laser fogged the lens, I guess would be a way of saying it. So everything I see has a blur in it.
That
Plus,
sucks.
I don't like the stereo glasses for the 3D movies. I don't
Mhm.
process that for some reason. So it's basically wearing glasses for a minor headache and I don't see it. So I don't do 3D.
3D movies are not worth it for me either. Not because I can't see it. I can see the 3D. I just don't like paying for the extra. It really pisses me off when I go to a movie and I think I'm going to the regular one. They say, "Okay, here are your glasses." I'm like, "No,
Yeah.
no."
Yeah.
This
I
doesn't
actually
do anything
can't.
for my vision.
I just can't process them. So 3D is not for me.
Well, I mean, characters need to have challenges, right? I mean, they
Oh,
need to be confronted with things that prevent them from attaining their goals, or
yeah.
things. I mean, that movie Inner Space. I mean, there's the unwilling hero, the ones that forced into doing something that because they have
Mhm.
a mini person injected into their bodies. They
Yep.
can basically control them and force them into doing stuff. I mean, it's very interesting when you challenge your characters with bad eyes, or God, no, what's the disease again, Mr. Glass has?
Osteos imperfectus,
Yeah, it's horrible.
also
I
known
mean,
as
what an
Brittle.
interesting thing. How frail, right? I mean, just like we are on the inside, we're very frail. If you grabbed my heart, you could break it, right? You could squish it and kill me very easily. But yet
Mhm.
it's protected by my rib cage and my musculature and my ability to fight for myself. But honestly, if I just laid myself bare, you could kill me so freaking easy, right? It would be nothing. The
Yep.
weaknesses that we hold inside ourselves aren't necessarily what will kill us. It's something else. I
I like the
mean,
I like the inner demons more. But yeah, people are very fragile, yet they're rather resilient at the same time. When you see like what
so
7-year-old will do, it's like, hey, not sure how you lived through that.
I mean, we've established that fan fiction side stories is a legitimate genre. Like people are full on writing stories and making you money with it. It's not
Mhm.
just fan fiction anymore, which I
Yeah.
think is a correction that you made immediately. You said no, it's not fan fiction. It's just regular fiction, straight
For
up.
for me, fan fiction is it's just using someone else's world. I mean,
just playing in somebody else's sandbox.
yeah, pretty well, not necessarily someone's sandboxes. Like, I actually, for a lot of beginner writers, I do think fan fiction makes a lot of sense because it's a lot of work to create a character, create a world, create a personality, create the culture and the society. Fan fiction is really good for this part is done so you can focus on this. Get good at this and then expand as your skill level matches. But it's just a medium of writing where you get, characters who are either completely evil and completely good. That people move away from it, but it's good to start there or to start with portal fantasies. Portal fantasies are good because someone is discovering the world with you. So the main character is discovering the world, which means you can build up the world and go, "Hey, this is new. Let me explain it." But when you have an established world, you can't say, "Well, Bob, as every single person in the room knows, the king was actually, brought into power 15 years ago." It's like that's not how people talk. But
Yeah.
portal fantasy is a way of saying that. Fan fiction is a way of saying, "I don't have to tell you because you already know." And then you can get good at it. Some people like to stay there, and some people go, "Okay, now that I have this little skill set, let me make it a little bigger and a little bigger and a little
Yeah.
bigger." So
Seems
for
like all fantasy nowadays kind of falls in that genre of, hey, you already know how works. So let's just go ahead and get started. We're begging for it in our superhero movies too. We do not want origin stories, do we? We don't want to hear about Spider-Man's uncle dying again. No, no, no. We don't want to hear about Superman crashing to Earth and being found by his parents. We want
I
adventures. We want these characters to do something new and exciting and go someplace that we'll never see.
I want I want Kung Fu Hustle.
That's awesome. This is a good movie.
And the reason I
You
do
just
that,
want a joke, right? You want a 2-hour joke with a great punchline at the end.
no, not
Every
necessarily. Um, except for the main character, everyone knew what they could do. They were comfortable in their skins, they were comfortable with their abilities, and then you get to see their struggles. They're not power discovery. They're actually, I'm competent, I'm capable. Here's what's challenging me. There's an anime series called Combustible Campus Gardas. It's an old one.
I've never seen it. Yeah.
Um,
Never.
it's there's the young teenager who's in love with the boy who's who's supposed to be protecting him. But at one point in the series, you find out all the older people who are the selling things on the street are also guardians. So you get the like Kung Fu Hustle. The laundry person was throwing the washer around. And the guy who sold naughty cards, used them as shurikens. But I love the older stories where people have established, which is why I don't like origin stories. I like it. Like Black Panther was awesome. He was
Yeah.
competent out of the get go.
Yeah, and plus you know that he's not. He's oh yeah, okay. I wasn't sure if had you on mute. I was putting some laundry in the dryer. Um, it was also that you knew that he was human too, because his dad died, right? I love
Mhm.
how they started out that movie. That this dude's not invincible. He can die. He's human.
Yep.
It's gonna probably happen. And this other guy's gonna be confronted with it too. It was such a great movie. I hope it does get nominated for an Oscar, and not some stupid altered category of popular or whatever they're gonna do.
Yeah, that was just trying to justify their racism. But sorry,
Man.
it's old white guys deciding things, and I'm really tired of old white guys telling stories. To be honest.
Yeah, it's not a very interesting story
Well, I've heard
anymore,
it.
is
I've
it?
already heard it. I got a whole library full of them. I want something else. I don't want stories set in the forest. I don't want kings. I really don't want alchemical, earth, fire, air, water.
I want
And
kings. I want kings like I see them in Game of Thrones. Selfish, horrible creatures doing horrible things for stupid reasons.
yeah,
I want real human beings. If they could be kings, they could be princes, they can be just disgusting gutter trash. I just want them to have real motivations and feelings and desires.
but I also want them to have something good about them and something bad about them.
Yeah.
And I don't want them to go. I want ones that I want the full range. I want ones who are doubting themselves, and one of them's going, "Yep, I'm a complete and utter asshole. Let's go with it," because that's life. You got people
Right.
who are very comfortable in their nature, be it good or bad, and you got people who are exploring their nature and going towards certain trends.
Yeah. And that's what you have good conflict with. I mean,
Mhm.
when you have somebody who has a different desire than you and you want them to do something else, it creates beautiful, beautiful conflict.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, what is happening in the world of side character fan fiction right now that excites you? Do you see something growing there? Do you see something developing? Is it going to become something new? Are we going to see more Rogue Ones in other genres? Are we going to break out the Ahoras and have like a bottle movie with a just that one actress, whatever her name is, who's playing Ahura in Star Trek? I don't understand why they don't just do that. You know what I mean? Just break them apart, make more stories interesting.
I hope so. I really do. I think. I mean, so Solo is nice, but I want characters besides the core ones of the first, the Star Wars, the Skywalker stories. I want to see a depth like Shaka or Ahsoka. I want stories
I
like
don't know.
hers. From the second Clone Wars.
Oh, you're talking about the Twi'lek with the pretty Twi'lek one, the one that was
Yeah.
George Lucas's assistant that was in for like 1 second, and like the internet went crazy over her, and she became like this meme thing.
Well, that would
Is
do
that the
too.
one?
Or Admiral Akbar. The guy who says it's a trap. I want to know what he's like
Yeah,
as a kid. Um,
yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
but for
I'd write a
me,
whole novel
it's
about him. There's like Ben Kenobi and what's his face? Who was his master? Qui-Gon Jinn,
yeah.
Jin, something like that. There's a story about him as a kid and their
Yep.
training. It's not really what you're talking about though, because that's the main character.
Yeah, well, I
You
mean,
want to,
expanded universe was really nice. I just thought it was a little too tied together. And what I mean by that is, in episode one, C-3PO happened to be built by Anakin. That annoyed me. In
yeah, because
R2D2, but it's
yeah,
also Anakin told Greedo if he doesn't misbehave, he's going to regret it. And that type of tying in of different stories, I don't care for.
I
I
didn't
want,
care for it in Solo. That's for freaking sure. All the shit. Like, here's your gun that you're gonna have for the next 20 years. Here's your name. You don't have a name. Oh, you're just Solo. Okay, that's your name now. I was like, oh, dude, come on, man. Who's writing this stuff? I
well,
want to like this movie so bad, and I accepted it and forgave all the bad stuff, but I didn't need backstories for every freaking thing in the world. You know?
the problem with backfilling stories is how you get there. Um, I'm inclined to, since there's time passing, I would have only done like one key thing, like how he got the Millennium Falcon. Everything else, not important for me.
Well, I think the problem there is that they had the director issues, and they fired their original directors, and that included like everything up to the train robbery. And then they did what's his face, Opie, and he did everything else. So it was like two movies, unfortunately, and they killed off Thandie Newton within the like first 20 minutes of the movie. I'm like, why are you going to hire her and then get rid of her? Like I half showed up for Thandie Newton.
Yeah, well, you have the Mummy, where not the Mummy, Fifth Element. The guy who was Luke Perry. I think he had title
Yeah,
credits, and he's only in there for like 5 minutes.
he's only in for like 5 minutes. Doesn't even show
Um,
up at the end. Doesn't know he's done.
no,
Doesn't show up at the end.
no, it's 400 years earlier. He was just part of the bit.
That was so cool that he was in it for 5 seconds. I totally had
Um,
respect for Luke Perry after that.
I mean, he had fun, and that's really a lot that matters. It's I would have actually I would have liked to see those as two separate stories, but that's me.
The Discovery. That's a
Uh,
prequel. Ah, man, it's
Discovery.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
That guy, what's his name? The director, can never say it. The French guy. He's not done well. He's got amazing vision, but that's like his only really good movie, isn't it?
Valerian is okay.
You think it is? I tried to watch it. It's got pretty people in it. I do not like that fiction at all. They look
It's
like
a
heroin addicts, both the boy and the girl. I'm like, why do you look like that? You're not
there,
people I want to cheer for.
that relationship I hated, but it is a pretty movie, and I like the introduction was a wonderful way of introducing.
Introduction. I was gonna say, if you weren't gonna say the introduction, I was gonna say the beginning. The
Yeah.
beginning of that movie is beautiful. It's so good,
Yep.
all the way,
Yeah.
all the way. And
I
then it
didn't
stops
feel the
being
middle.
good. And like they had this great 15-minute intro. Like you're like, hell yeah, let's get into this shit, and it stops being good immediately after ending. It's like, oh, how disappointing.
So
That was my experience with the movie.
for me, that story would have done better if there wasn't a romance plot.
Always, mostly in these movies, right? You have to have it forced. You have to have it at the end of the movie, like, I bet they get together.
No,
Here's
you
all the proof that I have that they're together.
don't even have to have that. Don't. So my first book, there is
That's
no
actually another
romance.
example of this shit, isn't it? It's shipping people, taking two characters and making them lovers or whatever, slash fiction.
Flash is awesome.
Spock, right? The Spock and Captain Kirk story from the 70s, where everybody's like, oh, dude, they're together. And they made a mistake and published it. There's like 12 copies of it out there right now.
No, I don't have a problem with that. I
Not
think
a
everyone.
problem. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, I read a book called Fangasm, which was about a group of fans following the Supernatural series. It's a really good book about the fandom around Supernatural, and they talk about Wincest and all the others.
Wincest?
Yeah, the Winchester boys together.
Oh my God. They call it Wincest. That's very
Yeah.
disturbing.
Oh,
Very,
there's
very, very disturbing.
people had fun with it, so
Yes, they did. And they retitled it Wincest. I mean, right there, they're having fun. I
well,
would have had I had a great time hearing that name just now.
yeah,
That
there's
actually that made my entire evening.
we're rewatching Supernatural, and they just got to the scene where Meg and Castiel are talking about the Pizza Man, and there's a term for that, Meg Steel or whatever. And I read somewhere that one of the fan fiction writers actually wrote a scene between Meg the Demon and Castiel the Angel, and the actress who played Meg loved it, and she brought it up in an interview. So I think it's great because it inspires people and they can have fun. Yeah, it's not canon, but who cares? If people enjoy it and have
There's a
fun,
lot of it out there though too. There's a lot of it out there. People are doing it. I mean, it is a thing. I know it's not a big thing right now, but eventually it
oh,
will be, right? I mean, or is it a big thing? Is it a
it's
money
a
making thing? Wattpad makes people money, isn't it? Doesn't it?
no. Wattpad doesn't really.
No.
You get Patreon.
But Patreon.
Wattpad's another one where
Oh, you got Patreon.
Wattpad basically gets people to give them free content so they can get more people into. Basically they use people's free effort to get money. I'm on Wattpad,
Yeah.
but um, but yeah, in general, I think it's great. In Japan,
What's the future of it?
well,
Is there a future for it, or is it at the cusp of what it can attain?
I think how Japan handles it. So in a lot of comics, the Japanese manga, there's a lot of fan fiction. People actually it appears to be sold. I don't know, and they accept it because they know, hey, I can't write all of this, and if people want to create more, they're still going to they still like my stuff, and they're going to buy my stuff because they're so much in love with it. They're also buying others. So I think the tolerance and acceptance of fan fiction is actually where it should go. Unfortunately, some people and companies and others are really like, I want absolute control over it, or I don't want other people playing my sandbox, as you were saying.
Yeah, I think
Um,
that's not the right idea. I really don't. I really feel
Um,
like as an artist, as somebody who creates content or has hopes to have an audience of people who enjoy his work, I feel like once you write the book and you hand it over, that's it for you. And everything that happens beyond that point is being guided by your efforts, but it really all the efforts on the reader. They're creating the world in their minds. They're creating the relationships. They're creating the desire to flip the page. And if they want to flip that back cover and then sit at their computer and type in some words and continue that story on,
you have touched them
it's awesome,
emotionally. People who write
right?
fan fiction don't hate their stories. They love them.
They love it. They love it.
And they love it so
And I don't
much.
understand why you would want to piss them off. I mean, God, the Star Trek movies, what a great example. The Star Trek movies a few years ago that were coming out, these fans were producing a whole series of shows, creating their own scripts, creating their own costumes, creating everything on their own, but yet they called it Star Trek because they love it so much. And CBS went down on them hard. It's
Actually,
like, dude,
one of
that's
my writer
awesome.
friends here in Iowa was actually part of one of those.
What? That's so fucking cool. I'd love to talk to that person.
And
I
he
would
was,
love to see it.
and he actually, they did the whole thing. And then at the last minute, they had to take off the Star Trek name. They actually filmed it. And he got a walk on role and everything.
Yeah.
And I think they banning fan movies and stuff to try gain a few more dollars was the worst thing they could do.
So stupid. Those people spent like $60,000+ on the production of their movie, and that's insane. Those people will definitely buy your $100 box set whether they made their movie or not. That's what you want. You want people to have something that interests them. And I've seen those fan movies. They're not good. You have nothing to worry about.
Well, some are good, some aren't. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Like I said, it's people who love it do fan fictions. They expand it because they love it and you want to encourage the loving it. In my case, I decided to be explicit in accepting it for all my writing. So I actually Creative Commons license my books,
Hmm.
which says you can't make money off of it unless you talk to me. But other than that, go for it. And I actually have a license that says that on my books, and that says if you like this, go ahead, create fan fiction, create fan art.
And I almost want to let people just make money too, because if I could watch them making money on my stuff, I could say, okay, maybe it's possible.
Well,
I mean, I'm not
there's
going to shut them off. I mean, I just don't think I'm that rich.
well,
You know
I
what I mean? Oh, you're going to take away money from my kids. I'm like, no, show me how you're doing it. I want to know. Throw my name in there someplace.
yeah, but that's what you can say is with Creative Commons, you can actually say this says non-commercial. I want to make money off of it, and they can just talk to me, and then we come up with an agreement. It doesn't
Yeah.
say it's the end all because you can always go to the copyright owner and say, you say I can do it without non-commercial. I want to do something commercial. And then I can say, great, let's figure it out. I'd like to at least have a little finger into it or to talk about it.
I mean, at the end of the day, just name your dumb world something different. Why do you have to name it this? If you want to do something different or you want to try and make money, it's really not that hard.
Well,
That's
it's
the
what
thing that
Twilight.
makes drives me crazy the most is that it's really all new. That Star Trek fan movie, all they have to do is drop Star Trek and they're fine.
They did.
You know what I mean? They didn't do anything extra to make it Star Trek-y. It was just a really, science fiction movie. They made a science fiction movie.
Well, 50 Shades of Grey was basically a
Is that
Twilight fan
fanfic?
fiction.
Exactly. I mean, you can take something. I talked to a woman by the name of Lauren Garcia early on in the podcast who did a Star Wars fanfic piece that she turned into her first novel, which she published with, I don't remember who. So, I mean, you could make a career off of fanfic. Not necessarily the world, but the writing and the effort.
It depends on your license. The
Well, I
writer
mean,
who did,
if you take that license and create a whole new world on it, you know what I mean? Because you're not,
yeah,
I guess my point being like, you're not going to capture Star Wars. There's Bibles written, right? There are rules that are like hundreds and hundreds of pages long that the writers of Star Wars have to follow. You don't have that. You're creating it all in your head. You're creating a unique IP if you allowed yourself to look at it in a different way.
yeah. And like with 50 Shades, it came off as a Twilight fan fiction. It got the Twilight fandom going with it. And then when it changed, into its own universe, those fandoms are like, it's still Twilight for me.
What did who did she ship in that? Who did she slash fit together to make
wasn't
that
Slash.
story?
Well, it was just the two main characters, just with a BDSM relationship.
So I mean, but they didn't have a BDSM relationship.
Right. That was the part that
And they so it wasn't side characters or anything. It
no,
was
it was
full
main.
on
Yep.
Bella and whatever his name is.
Yes.
I don't know if her name is Bella.
I don't
Sebastian? No, I have no clue.
Nah.
I have no clue.
It's been a while since I read it.
I mean, that's another great example. That's a whole series of books that have been out and made that woman millionaire based on fanfic, based on side character fiction too, potentially. I mean, I don't know, Bella or the other guy was it, or the werewolf guy, or like some people was in the background.
No, it was main character, but yeah, but they took a variant of the story and built up on it and created it. It would have been nice if they kept, I don't know. I like having them tied together.
This brings up the subject of copyright. Obviously, you mentioned it already with the Creative Commons. And we're looking at a world where copyright almost makes zero sense anyway, because nobody's paying for anything. You can get whatever you want. You can copy, you can capture your screen and take an image without ever having to pay anybody anything. So in the long run, why even ask permission? China does it. China makes theme parks of copyrighted material and basically big middle finger right in the middle, pointed right at Disney. I mean, is the future concerning itself with copyright, or does it matter anymore? Corporate America can bluster all they want. They can't stop it from happening anyway.
Unfortunately, this is a case where my technical skills get involved. I know how easy it is to steal a book. It comes down to technically, it's easy. Morally,
very, very
less
simple.
so. But at the same, related to that, when I was
it's moral because it's out there, right? I mean, you're not going into a store, you're not stealing something, you're very easily downloading it. You're walking into a friend's house and borrowing it. I mean, there's no morality there. You're not actually stealing anything or ripping anybody off or taking something that didn't create effort or whatnot. Somebody that's not giving it away, you're taking it. Somebody's giving it away and you're taking it. You know what I mean? They might have stolen it. I mean, who knows how they got it? A lot of people back in the day when these books started to appear online, they were practicing typing, right? I mean, they would type out the books to practice. They had tons of mistakes. There were horrible reading experiences, but that's how the books would get online.
Yeah. So I do think you are not compensating the creator, and that is a terrible thing. And the reason why is if you don't pay for the writer, they stop writing. Same thing with movies, music, everything. If everyone steals things, they sit there looking like in my case, I make $5 a month in my writing. I know no one's stealing it, but if I always made $5 and it was popular, I'm going to stop writing at some point. So what happens is if you like it, you should pay for it. So the reason I liked Patreon and the reason I did Creative Commons the way I did is I said, if you like it, here's how you can give me money.
It seems to be the way people are doing it nowadays, especially with YouTube. Content is available, right? I mean, you can find fiction for free anywhere you want, whether it's it's not stolen. I'm talking about people giving it away.
Right.
You can maintain free fiction forever.
However,
but at the end of the day, how do you get paid as a content creator? People don't want to pay. People don't want to buy it.
But they weren't going to pay for it anyways.
Exactly. They do not want to buy it, but they will give people Patreon money. It's a great example. It is working for certain people.
Yep.
Is it working like how you want it to work?
Oh, God,
I have a Patreon. I'll tell you right now, it does nothing other than haunt me because I don't do anything with it. I really don't know how to sell this podcast in any other way besides, would you like to listen to a live one? Would you like to get a free short fiction piece every month? I mean, there's really nothing I can give away that I'm not already giving away. You know what I mean?
Right. So that's why I went with the web comic model is what I decided on, which is web comics, which I absolutely adore. They post every week or 3 times a week, and it's there. You
3
don't.
times a week is awesome. Wow,
Right.
that's a lot of content.
Some of them are, some of my favorite. Girl Power. Girl Power is one of my favorite comics, and everything's free. Yeah, if you get Patreon, you get a double size, and of course, I am a patron. But I'm also a strong believer that if I like it, I will give money. But I make it's even though it's free, I actually budget in I have a budget for donating money to creators as part of my paycheck. And that is specifically because I know it's free, but if you don't pay them, they don't keep creating. And yes, you might get it free, but it's the thousands of other people who are getting it for free that's not helping them get paid. And if they don't get paid, they have their day jobs. They can't finish things like commissions. 90% of my income is commissions. I mean, the only reason I've written so long is because of my commissions, and I'm choosing to stop them, which means I'm going to take a net basically of all my writing income. Every year I do a writing income post thanks to Jim Hines. And I'm going to lose all that, but I felt it was the correct thing to do.
I'm 100% different, honestly. My income comes from sending stuff out and getting paychecks back or checks back. I have a publisher that says, I like this, here's some money. You know what I mean? I never ever put something out and say, here's my website, I'm going to make $1 million off of this. I go, here's a novel, do you want it to pay me? You know what I mean? I never have to worry whether or not it's not good enough because I'm going to get told it sucks. No, I don't want to buy it. Or hell yeah, I'm going to buy that. Let me pay you 6 cents a word or whatever it is. I immediately know whether I wrote something good. I don't have to I don't have to wonder whether my marketing skills are strong enough. I just have to worry about whether I'm writing a good story.
Yeah, I never successfully did that.
It's not something you successfully do. You like 99% get no's, and then 1% of yeses you just try to hold on to as in like you have something good going on.
Yeah. So my theory is if I have a weird set of experiences that to create large worlds, so I'm just going to keep writing, and somewhere I'm hoping around the 5 to 10 million word mark, people stumble onto it and say, "Hey, this is cool."
Well, I mean, I stumbled onto you. I mean, it's not hard. It's not a hard to imagine scenario that you would appeal to somebody who could potentially maven you into a large enough circle where $5 is laughable. You know what I mean? One day you'll go, I only make $5 a month. Potentially, if you don't quit. If you quit, then you'll always make only $5 a month.
Yep. Well, it'll go down.
So I mean, obviously, like the most you ever made, it'll only be $5 a month.
Right.
It won't ever go up.
So I write because I like to, and I just give people the possibility of helping me. But it's really on faith. I mean, I'm writing on faith. It happens I have a day job, which helps. I mean, I can't write as fast as I can because I am, I do work the programming during the day. But
it sounds like you write a lot, though. It sounds like you have a very high rate of output. And I felt like that last time I talked to you, too.
About $250,000 a year.
Man, I don't know what my numbers are. I write like 2 or 3 5,000 word stories a month, and then I try to add to a novel. So, I mean, this year I've wrote 1 novel and a novella and 2 short stories a month. How many words is that? I have no clue.
This year I'm at a little over 200,000 between commissions and everything. And next weekend I get a writing. I'm a touch typer and I queue up everything. Thanks to Marcock, which I can explain. So I get a writing weekend next weekend. So I'm actually going to go to basically the family cabin, and I'm just going to sit down and belt out as many words as possible. And I usually get about 50,000 words in 3 days.
I got to tell you, man, the touch typing thing, I have had a major epiphany. I can't type. I have this thing that I've been doing since I was a kid, this 3-finger, whatever the hell, I'm really decent at. I'm really kind of quick at it. I do like 40 words a minute or whatever with it, but I'm always looking at the keyboard. And when I look up, my screen is covered in red. So I have decided that I'm going to teach myself to type. And I'm like 1 week into this thing, and now I can actually lay my fingers on the keyboard and look at the screen and make it happen, but at a slow and agonizing, and it feels like I'm crippled on some level, and my output is like 20 words a minute. It's like doing the opposite of what I want. I'm just hoping that I get to your level and I can just touch type 50,000 words in a sitting or whatever.
It's definitely, it's one of those things. My dad talked about how he should learn how to touch type. He's a programmer and a scientist. And for 30 years, he's told me I really should sit down and learn how to touch type. And I, year after year after year. And he retired. And I'm like, you know how much you could have done if you just spent the 2 months when I was 10 years old doing it? He's like, yeah, but I didn't. You just had, it's like a video game. You have to spend the end, even though you don't get anything out of it, you have to do it. I think touch typing is one of the best skills to learn.
And I agree, especially for a
Uh,
programmer, right?
I actually, well, one, I've been touch typing for a very long time. And I actually program and write at almost full speed now.
It's full speed.
About 100, 120 words per minute, which is my programming speed.
That's
Well,
incredible.
that's actually because of Marcock. So there's an
What's
article
this
out
guy?
there. Michael Marcock, he wrote the Eldrick series. And
Okay,
there's,
I didn't read it.
in the book, he talks about how he writes a novel in a weekend. How he basically plans the plot so he knows everything that's going to go on. And at the end, he basically says, I love you to all his loved ones, locks himself in a room and just belts out words as fast as possible. Doesn't worry about spell check. Turn it off. Don't worry about grammar checker. In my case, I don't even worry about spelling as long as I got at least 3. Yeah, I can figure it out later. And it's just smearing words on the page. And so because I have the 2 kids, I can't focus enough to make words perfect. So it's literally just get out the words because I can fix it 1 paragraph at a time when I'm watching TV or with the kids, but I can't get the whole chapter out unless I focus. So the focus time is like with this writing weekend. I know exactly what I'm going to write. I know exactly the plots, the characters, and everything. It's just how fast can I get it out of my head? And I don't bother spell checking the entire weekend. I just write as fast as I can because I can fix it later.
Yeah, I remember you saying that you're very much editing is a no-brainer for you.
Sometimes I have no clue what I'm saying, but it's but I found just splitting the 2 apart makes life a lot easier because it takes training to say, hey, that's horribly spelled. So touch typing helps because I can type with my eyes closed.
So what's the most important thing for you while writing that first draft?
Get words out.
Just get the words out.
Literally, just
What's the
smear the
hardest thing?
words.
What's the most difficult part of it?
If I think too much about it, I have trouble visualizing it. But mostly what I do is I visualize the scene and write what I see in my head. So I have fairly good visualization skills too, which helps.
Yeah, it really is all that matters, isn't it? I mean, if you can picture something and describe it, you'll probably be okay.
And the other one is I believe in logical progressions of emotional states. So I have to be able to say, okay, he's angry here, he does this, what is next? And when I get the conflict is when I'm writing, I'm like, he would do this, but I want him to do this. Well,
Yeah.
what I think is what he would do, it takes precedence over what I planned on writing. Which is why Ryujimo in my second book ended up being a priest of the dead, which was not part of the original plot line at all.
I love the mythology that you've built up. I mean, it really is cool. And you know what else I love is that we have been talking for just about an hour and 10 minutes. I don't know where the time went. And this is a really, really great conversation, and I'm very happy that I had you back on to discuss fan fiction and side character whatnots. I mean, this is a good conversation. I think we went good places. What's going on with you that you want people to know about?
Well, basically, I have a chapter a week. I post everywhere: Twitter, Mastodon. I have a mailing list. People who pay me means I get edited, so I get my next novel edited, and I work on the next one. I also write. I don't write about the process of writing. I write about the technical side of writing.
Oh, okay. Like, what do you mean?
Programs to I write, using a text editor. I use Notepad++ to write for all practical purposes. I don't use Word or Scrivener or anything, and so I talk about using that to write. And
What is it that? How does it write?
just words. I don't care about
Just puts
formatting.
words up there.
I
It's
don't
like a
care about
WordPad kind of
formatting.
situation.
Yeah, WordPad without formatting.
Okay.
So I talk about the process of writing, because if you can't format it, you don't pay attention to it, which means you can focus on whatever. But mainly,
Does it write on one line? Do you hit enter at all, or is it just kind of flow?
just between paragraphs.
Do you just hit enter between paragraphs? So you have one whole line. That's a great way to see how you're starting things, huh?
Yeah.
No echo words.
Well, I wrote a program that actually highlights echo words for me as I'm writing.
Oh, that's so interesting. Passive voice too.
It's going to be there eventually.
Eventually, there's a neat little grammar program that I use. It's $50 a year. So if you could do something that's free that does the exact same thing, that'd be wonderful.
Everything I do is pretty much free. If people like it. But the other one is, I love talking about it or the process of it. Comments, just occasional likes. I don't get responses when I post on almost
Very
any
few people
network.
do.
And
Unless you're famous, nobody cares, right?
Right. But when you give away things for free, webcomics are the same way. An acknowledgement you're reading it is a very powerful motivation that really helps the I'm going to quit nights.
Yeah, I bet.
And that applies to every
This
writer.
guy, I just published him on Thursday or Friday, actually. Evan Waterman came from nowhere to put together a comic book with a bunch of people, and it seems like he's doing a bunch of cool stuff on Kickstarter too, like getting funded for distribution.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you want to look and see what he's doing and kind of. I mean, there are tons of people out there kind of doing something that's successful, right? That looks like they're getting attention to some degree. 100 people, 150 people. What are they doing that's different? Is it accidental? Are they getting clicked on just because the mouse slipped? Or what is it that they're doing in the short amount of time that people engage with them to make them continue on and read their stuff and engage with them?
They have an
They're not
audience.
all pretty girls.
Well,
What?
they have an audience.
They have an audience, but they didn't all the time. They weren't born with an audience.
But
They weren't like, oh, here's your audience today, George. You're 2 or something. I mean, they did come from nothing to get to where they are. How did they do it? Was it an accident, or was it just quality? Is it, can you do it, or is it like just something that's going to always be vaporware, not there? Fake. You can tweet all day long, and it's never going to happen. Or can you get to their place with work and effort and quality?
I seem to be in the tweet all day long, and I'm going to say this is true since about the 90s. People don't talk about, you can sell to your friends. Yeah, it's convincing your friends or the people around you to then talk about it to get other people brought in.
Well, you're their friend, so they're only going to be able to talk to you about it. I mean, that's not good, right?
But I don't.
You need to break out of that.
I mean, when you look at it, I've been on Twitter since 2009, and I think I'm almost up to 500 people.
Well, there are games that you can play to make that higher, supposedly.
I don't play games. That's
all social media is games. I mean, you have to do the thing to make it work, and the thing that makes it work doesn't really work. They just want you there so you can click on their stuff and make them look like they're actually doing something.
And so part of it is I haven't found the thing that makes people want to pay attention to me. I mean, when I'm one-on-one, I do wonderfully. I sell moderately well at conventions, but mass, I'm just another name.
I think you said it before. I think you said the most important thing, doing it and doing it and doing it and getting good at it and just continuing to put yourself out there and making the product and getting better at engaging.
Yep.
You have 500 people. You started out with nobody. So obviously you're heading in the right direction. You're not going down. You haven't hit that. There are people who have burned themselves significantly on social media and will never, ever be able to use that name again to sell a story. You know what I mean? They've said stupid jokes about events, then they can never, ever, ever be that person again. They have to be somebody new. So, I mean, you are Dylan Moonfire forever right now, as long as you don't do something dumb, and it could always work out for you.
Well, I'll be Dylan Moonfire forever. It's my legal name. But at some number of years ago at Icon, the sci-fi convention here in Cedar Rapids,
Mhm.
I got to see Scott Lynch and Jim Hines talking, and they were talking about how do you succeed. In his case, he said it's about 7 years before he started getting successful. And what I came out of that discussion was write more words, don't be a dick.
Yeah, basically, that's exactly. I agree
So
100%.
that's why I
Couldn't put it more
post.
succinctly.
That's why I post every week. Every week there's
And
a
don't get mad.
chapter.
I mean, get mad, you're going to bury yourself too. You cannot get mad at the lack of attention, because it's like that's the
Right.
name of the game.
You just
Apathy. Nobody cares until they do.
right. So
Give
just
them a
keep
reason.
writing, and eventually someone will go, "Hey, that looks like an interesting cover." I'll click on it, or "Hey, I want to read about this character," and I'll say, "Hey, it's right here." Uh,
But I
and
think
I
also
think,
one of the other things that you do that's interesting is you're not just Dylan Moonfire, you're your publishing house, and you have a group of people that should be working together. I mean, you should all be marketing the crap out of each other's stuff. You should be working to get. I mean, you all are family in a way, right? You're
Mhm.
engaged in this thing called your publishing house, and that's cool.
Yep,
I don't have that. I mean, I don't have a group of people that have the same kind of mindset, working towards a goal, which is to get their stories out.
yeah, we're getting there. I'm obviously more emotionally involved with this. Uh,
Well, it's your baby, right?
it's my baby, and publishing was also to cover some other things. But yeah, I mean, I love the stories and I talk about them. I have a whole, you know, I do newsletters with chapters and stuff of the stories I like, and we work together. Just it's mostly me, and then others join in as they can, because this is my passion. This is my complete. This is I do writing and I work and I have family. I have three things in my life, and I stick with those three.
Nothing wrong with that.
Reader's Digest. You may notice I know why I do everything. As a friend once said, I'm very self-described, but I know my motivations. But Reader's Digest, I was sitting at a dentist's office, and there's a little thing that said you have time in your life for three things. Pick those three things, prioritize them, and try, and then you can't fail. And I was 12 when I read that. So those are my three
What were your
things:
three things? Writing, family,
family,
and
work. Writing, family, and work.
well, programming, right? Specifically because
Yeah, all
you like
my
that.
all my fun programming is related to writing. So when my son was born, my first son was born, I actually sat down. While she was giving labor, and we talked about it. And I said, I have to give up something because I like writing computer games, playing games, and writing. And I said, with him coming, I need to be a good father. What do we give? And we actually talked about it. And so we decided everything I do is focused on writing. All my programs for the decade, his first 10 years are going to be related to writing. All of my efforts are going to be writing. And so that's what I do.
Yeah, I feel you, man. That's something I definitely could not give up myself, and maybe would have been better if I did. Who knows? At the end of the day, right? I
I,
mean, all we have to look forward to is a time where we're so tired we have to go to sleep, and we won't wake up after that. It's basically what life is: a moment of surprise ending that you don't even know is happening. Just will happen, and the people that you leave behind will know it, whether or not you were successful or you failed miserably, and that will be the story told about your life for either a very short amount of time or forever, like Shakespeare. Which I
yep.
don't know if that's the goal or not, because some people even take credit away from his own literary. And that's even funnier. People even before Shakespeare, nobody gives anybody credit for anything they write. Who wrote Beowulf? Who wrote, I don't know, the Iliad? I mean, these are all stolen stories, aren't they?
Oh, yeah.
Stolen and written down by poets, taking credit for them.
Oh, League of
And maybe,
Extraordinary Gentlemen is stolen from public domain characters, and then they copyrighted those characters.
right? I mean, the whole Lovecraftian mythology right now is all common denominator, what's it called? Creative Commons.
Well,
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, all we can do is this, because for some reason it's in us to paint
Yep.
figures on cave walls and
I
tell
can't stop.
stories.
Yep.
Can't
I
stop
can't
it.
stop
It just has
writing.
to happen. Even when I want to, I just do it in my life. Say stupid shit. That just story elements, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, it's impossible to get rid of. As horrible as it might be.
Yep.
If it isn't
And
horrible.
as long as your passion, your passion can carry an awful lot. I mean, like my covers of my books. They're my style of cover, which is why I drew them.
I like your covers.
Yep. A lot of people hate them. A lot of people like them, but they're definitely mine.
In fact, I like talking to you because you've actually helped me with my writing.
Huh.
You said something that really, I mean, I wrote a novel with you in my head. If I don't know what that does for you, I decided not to write any backstory. None.
Oh,
I wrote
cool.
everything that I needed in that story, even going back as far as the character's third birthday, just to write a scene to move the story forward, not backwards in a scene.
Did you
So I
like it?
mean, I don't know. I hate all my writing. I haven't tried to publish it. It's still in like its first draft form right now.
Well, if it
Or its
goes too
second
far,
draft.
I jump. So, like Ryujima, his childhood is actually in a
Uh-huh.
different novella called Raging Alone. So, I actually just said it's interesting. I'll put those chapters in a short story or a novella.
Well, I
Which
just wanted
is
to I wanted to show how this character was being how his life was in this
uh-huh.
place. I wanted to show I was already showing part of it anyway. So I'm like, oh man, I need to go back a little bit farther. And then I write
Mhm.
a little bit farther back. I'm like, oh crap, I need to write a little bit farther more.
Mhm.
And the thing's not done, but it's very interesting because it does create situations where I could take that entire first part of that novel and make it a novel on its own. I
Mhm.
mean, it has a Lost Boys quality to it. It deserves to have more to it. I mean, there's a whole collection of boys that are existing in this story that I wrote that need to be fleshed out in a way.
Mhm.
How much bigger can that section be? And then the next section, is also could be self-sustaining. I mean, it's very interesting if you look at the details and you can add them and make a bigger story. Does backstory add to the narrative, or does it interrupt and make you stop being in the moment, right? Do you want your reader to stop being in the moment? Do you want them to go back? Do you want to take a moment? Do you want them to take a breath? Do you want to understand something? I mean, it's
Yeah.
very fascinating problem to have. It's nice.